Welcome to Lake 78 of the Great Loop aboard the Perch. I'm Kim Russo with America's Great Loop Cruisers Association, and today our cruise will take us from Fulton, Mississippi to Columbus, Mississippi. We're continuing on the Tenn-Tom, and of course it's November now, which means the hours of daylight we have are getting noticeably shorter. This is not the same kind of cruising as when we were on the Great Lakes in the summer. It's only about a 50-mile day, but we do have 4 locks, so depending on the weight at those, we knew it could be a very long day. So because of that, we left before sunrise. We were pulling out of the marina, obviously going very slowly. We knew the first lock was just about in sight of the marina. So leaving in the dark wasn't quite as scary as it might otherwise be, because we knew we just had a short distance. We knew we'd wait a little bit for the lock, and then by the time we locked through and came out, we would be in daylight. So there you can see the sun is rising over the Fulton Lock, and we are getting ready to lock through. That's our buddy boat, Light and Salty. And into the lock we went. You can see a few other boats in there with us. But in general, it was pretty early, so most folks had not untied and set off before the sun rose, like those few boats you saw on the lock did. So as we left the lock, as I said, a series of 4 locks today, so we knew it would not be too long until we had another lock to go through. The first lock, as I mentioned, was the Fulton Lock. The next one would be the Wilkins Lock. But first, this is some interesting kind of video of what can happen when you're in a narrow part of the river and you come across a tow. We, of course, communicated with the tow. That's our buddy boat in front of us, and the tow asked us to take him on the two. So in that case, that's what you saw Light and Salty doing there, and we would do the same and continue on down towards the lock. The next lock, as I said, is Wilkins Lock. We did not have a very long wait at Wilkins either, so we had a pretty smooth day as far as locks go. We had heard that there was a lot of extra commercial traffic on the waterway. We were not encountering a whole lot, and it certainly wasn't holding us up at the locks, but this is the Perch coming in towards the lock wall there. And those are some boats you see in the lock. We had been joined by a couple more at this point. And there's a look at several looper boats in the Wilkins Lock. That is before the door shut. These locks on the Tenn-Tom, as you've seen before, are floating bollards. So the way the Perch is set up, our midship is pretty high up. You have to stand pretty high above the water line on the deck to reach that. And because of that, if we just run the line behind the bollard, it tends to slip off if the bollard doesn't have ears like that one you saw. So we wrap it around once and bring it back to the boat and hold it there. But we left the lock again. Very smooth lock through, and very quickly here you come to the next lock, the third of today's trip. It's the Cochrane Lock. So the same boats, of course, that left Wilkins Lock entered Cochrane with us. Everybody got tied up, and we got ready to lock through. And there's another view of the Perch coming into the lock. And on our way again, working our way towards Columbus. We've got one more lock to get through, and that is the Aberdeen Lock before we pull into Columbus Marina for the night. Columbus Marina is an AGLCA sponsor, and definitely stop in and say hello to Steve there. Steve has been a great supporter of AGLCA for a long time, even when he was at other marinas, so we want to really thank him for that. Aberdeen Lock, as I said, our final lock for the day. We had no long waits at any of these locks, and when they're in close succession like this, the lock masters communicate, tell them what next one on down the river who is coming, and that tends to expedite things a little bit. So as you had seen, we left before sunrise to make sure we had enough daylight to get this leg done. We did arrive before sunset. So you make this, as you're approaching Columbus, you will be very close to the next lock, which we'll be taking on the next morning. But there is a turn to port to enter Columbus Marina that you'll see coming up in just a moment or two. Many of the boats would be taking on fuel, so we kind of hovered outside the marina for a few minutes while Light and Salty got their fuel so that we could come into the fuel dock. There have been some reports of low water in, well, as you know if you've been watching these videos, there's some low water just about everywhere. But some reports of low water near Columbus Marina. No problem with that whatsoever. Steve guided us in, and he does it while, kind of organizing several boats coming in, and he does it with a great sense of humor. So we very much enjoyed our stop at Columbus. Not a whole lot that you can get to at Columbus Marina unless you have access to a car. They do have a courtesy car. We had a lovely dinner at Harvey's in Columbus, and also were able to reprovision. So there's our Nebo log for the day. It took us almost 8 hours to cover just over 50 nautical miles. We averaged 7 knots and did a little faster than that a couple of times, but nothing over 10 knots on this trip down the Tenn-Tom. So there's an overview. You can see the 4 locks we went through, and then the final stop at Columbus Marina. Thanks for watching. We will be back soon with our next leg, which will take us from Columbus to Demopolis.